So, right now in Morocco, 8 women are dead and an entire generation is on fire. But the spark that lit this flame wasn't your usual political scandal. It was a hospital that failed to save them. What kicked off as a hospital tragedy in a city called Agadir has just blown up. We're talking about the biggest anti-government uprising Morocco has seen in years. Because for 5 straight nights, young Moroccans have been pouring into the streets in more than a dozen cities, and they are all chanting this one powerful message that gets right to the heart of their anger. We have stadiums, but where are the hospitals? Just think about that for a second. In Morocco, you have about 7.7 doctors for every 10,000 people. Just for context, here in Nigeria is over 40%. And yet, while we saw Kenyan GenZ shut down their government over a finance bill, while Madagascar's youth forced their president to dissolve his entire government, Nigerian youth are just quiet. The youth in Nigeria are just sitting there doing nothing and quiet like nothing is going on. Meanwhile, everything that is causing these uprisings in Kenya, in Madagascar, and in Morocco is happening like 10 times over here in Nigeria. But it feels like nothing is happening at all. But let me go back to the main story. Morocco's revolt isn't some typical protest. You need to know about what they call GenZ 212. They are a totally anonymous, decentralized group that turn things like gaming platforms and TikTok into political weapons. There are no leaders to arrest, no headquarters to raid, and it's just about 120,000 angry young voices. What we are witnessing here isn't just about bad hospitals or underfunded schools. This is a full-on generational revolt. It's a revolt against a system that spends billions on FIFA World Cup stadiums while mothers are dying just trying to give birth. But here's what makes this so dangerous for the people in power in Morocco. GenZ 212 has figured out what went wrong with their past movement. They learned from the Iraq Reef protest back in 2016, where authorities just arrested the leader and the whole thing fell apart. This time, there is no leader to arrest. This time, they've gone completely ghost mode, coordinating from where the government can't shut down. So in today's episode, we are going deep. We are going to break down how Morocco's digital revolution is rewriting the rules for protests across Africa, why this leaderless model is spreading across the continent, and what lessons Nigeria's supposedly tech-savvy generation can learn from their counterparts in Morocco, who are proving to be absolutely fearless. Let's get into it. Eight mothers. They all went to a hospital in September to give birth. Not a single one of them came back alive. And here's the thing. Their deaths are what just triggered the largest youth uprising we've seen in North Africa this decade. The place was the Hassan II Regional Hospital in Agadir. People started calling it the Death Hospital after those 8 women died during childbirth, all in early September. We're talking about equipment shortages, staff just not showing up, no medicine available. These moments that should have been joyful turned into tragedies that just shook the whole country. Local people started protesting right outside the hospital, demanding answers, but no answers came. And the numbers, they tell an even darker story. Morocco only has about 7.7 doctors for every 10,000 people. That's below the World Health Organization's recommendation of 25. And in Agadir, where this happened, it's even worse. It drops to just 4.4 doctors in this particular town. This is a healthcare crisis the government just seemed happy to ignore. And it wasn't just in Agadir. Similar tragedies were happening in hospitals in Rabat, Fez, and Larache. This wasn't a one-off thing. It was a total system failure affecting the entire country. Now, this is where it gets really interesting when you look at Nigeria. We have just 4 doctors for every 10,000 people, even worse than Morocco. Our maternal mortality rate stands at about 1,047 deaths per 100,000 births compared to Morocco's 72, making Nigeria's rate nearly 15 times worse. And yet, it looks like everything is fine down here. We've got over 18 million kids out of school. Our hospitals are crumbling, and yet our leaders in Nigeria are building the most expensive capital city in the world while buying private jets and yachts. And now they have not concluded plans to tax us to death. But when our hospitals fail, when mothers die here, when kids can't get basic health care, our youth stay silent. They might complain on Twitter, make a few memes, and then they move on. But not in Morocco. They saw 8 deaths that could have been prevented and decided that was it. Enough is enough. The health minister, Mohamed Amin, he showed up in Agadir, fired a few hospital doctors, but the protesters weren't buying it. It was just for show. They understood something that Nigerian youth still don't seem to get, that firing one person without changing the whole broken system is just political theater. But what happened next wasn't just grief. It was a digital revolution. And now, governments all across Africa are scrambling, trying to figure out how to understand it and how to crush it. Now, while young people in Nigeria are on Twitter arguing about Big Brother Niger, teenagers in Morocco were turning Discord, a gaming platform, into the most sophisticated protest machine Africa has ever seen. GenZ 212, it doesn't operate like any other protest movement we've seen before. It's named after Morocco's international phone code, 212, and it's basically a collective running on a completely anonymous network. We are talking about over 120,000 members, all organized by regions on Discord. Think about that. A platform designed for teenagers to coordinate video games just became the headquarters for a nationwide revolution. And their setup is just brilliant. They have different Discord servers for different regions, which allows them to plan strategies while staying secure from government spies. They use TikTok as their content machine, pumping out viral videos of what's really happening in hospitals, of police brutality, videos that reach millions of young Moroccans within hours. Then they use Instagram for real-time updates, true stories, and live videos. And Facebook is where they post their official statements. This strategy, using multiple platforms, it makes it almost impossible for the government to censor them. If the authorities shut down one platform, the movement just shifts to another. It's like trying to play a whack-a-mole with a generation that's always 3 steps ahead of you on the tech front. You can compare this to what we saw in Kenya with the whole reject finance movement. It worked. Kenyan Gen Z used similar digital tactics. TikTok for viral videos, X for real-time coordination, WhatsApp for mobilizing people locally. They even leaked phone numbers of parliament members, flooded them with calls, and turned all that digital pressure into a real political victory. And in Madagascar, the youth there followed the same playbook. They organized on Facebook and forced President Rajolina to dissolve his entire government after prices of the utility have increased by about 400% in the last 2 years. And only the rich can basically afford it. Yet, it looks like nothing is happening. Everywhere is just quiet. In Nigeria, we have more internet users than Morocco and Kenya put together. Our youth are more connected, more tech savvy, and yet they are politically passive. While Moroccan teens are coordinating these complex multi-city protests on gaming apps, Nigerian youth are on these same apps arguing about celebrities and football. The difference isn't the technology, it's the courage, it's political consciousness. Young Nigerians have somehow accepted that suffering is normal, that bad governance is just how it is. But the youth in Morocco, they refuse to accept either of those things. But the Moroccan government was watching all of this, and yet they were about to make the one mistake that almost every other government has been making, which would turn a bunch of angry teenagers into a movement they couldn't stop. So get this, Morocco is spending about $950 million on FIFA World Cup stadiums. At the same time, mothers are dying in childbirth. If you are in Nigeria, that probably sounds familiar, right? Except their youth actually did something about it. Here's the math that just made Morocco snap. The government is building at least 3 new stadiums and fixing up 6 others for their bid for 2030 World Cup. The total spending on sports infrastructure is about 9.5 billion Moroccan currency. That's 9.5 billion, and that's nearly $950 million and this whole spending happened between 2023 and it's going to continue up until 2028. The big one, the Hassan II Stadium in Casablanca, that alone is going to cost about $500 million over 5 years. And the budget for building hospitals during that same time, just $320 million. That means Morocco is spending 3 times more on stadiums that will be used for a few weeks than on hospitals that could be saving lives for decades. And the protesters, they summed it up perfectly. Stadiums are here, but where are the hospitals? This is where that slogan became political dynamite. In just 6 simple words, it captured everything that's wrong with Morocco's priorities. Even people who can't read could understand it. Government officials try to defend the spending, saying the World Cup is good for the economy. But when mothers are dying just trying to have a baby, nobody wants to hear about luxury stadiums. Now, let's talk about the hypocrisy right here in Nigeria. We spend about $1.5 billion on that Lagos-Calabar coastal highway, while hospitals don't have basic equipment. Our numbers are even worse than Morocco's messed up priorities. But Nigerian youth stay silent. We've just normalized corruption so much that our leaders can literally steal our future right in front of us, and we are busy debating which politician has the best social media game. Madagascar's Gen Z saw their government misusing resources, and they hit the street until their president dissolved the entire government. Kenya's youth forced their president to scrap a tax bill that would have funded projects for the elite by making life harder for ordinary people. But Nigerian youth, we make memes and we live. We choose Japa over fighting for our country. We choose individual escape over collective resistance. Now, back to Morocco. Because the government's first move wasn't to talk or to reform. It was to send in the riot police. They had no idea what they were about to unleash. On September 27th, everything started out peacefully. But by September 30th, we had police vans ramming into protesters and banks were on fire. So the real question is, how did the Moroccan government manage to turn concerned citizens into actual revolutionaries? The first protest, they were almost like festivals. Young people gathered in Rabat, Casablanca, Marrakesh. They were singing, chanting, holding up signs that said, "We want hospitals, not stadiums." They were incredibly disciplined. They were even cleaning up the streets after themselves. Their peaceful conduct was so impressive, it even got praise from government critics. But the government response was just pure foolishness. Instead of talking to them, they sent in the riot police. Instead of addressing the healthcare crisis, they just started making mass arrests. Over 200 people in the first 3 days across 15 different cities. The Moroccan Association for Human Rights documented systematic violence against peaceful demonstrators. The police were attacking everyone, from teenagers to journalists who were just there to cover the story. Then came September 30th. That was the day everything changed. In a city called Oija, near the Algerian border, a police van deliberately speared into a crowd of protesters and seriously injured a young man. The video went viral. You can see the vehicle just flying through the square, hitting the guy, and then driving off while people are screaming in horror. That one video, it transformed the entire movement. The peaceful protesters became masked revolutionaries. In a place called Izegane, demonstrators set banks on fire and started flipping over police cars. In another city, they torched cars and destroyed a bank branch. The government had created the very thing they were afraid of getting. Now, compare that to Nigeria's NSAS protest, when our government massacred peaceful protesters at the Lekki toll gate, killing dozens of youth. What happened next? Nothing. There was no sustained resistance, no revolutionary transformation, no political consequences. Nigerian youth just accepted the massacre and moved on. So why is it that Nigerian youth accepted police brutality without fighting back, while Moroccan teenagers turned that same state violence into fuel for a revolution? The answer comes down to political consciousness and the will to fight instead of just running away. But this wasn't just another protest that was going to fade away. GenZ 212 had learned from every single failure of the last decade, and they were about to prove it. Look, every revolution learns from the ones that failed before it, and that's exactly what GenZ 212 did. They studied how the Moroccan government crushed the Iraq movement back in 2016, and they designed the perfect counter-strategy. Morocco's recent history is like a textbook on how government shut down protests. You had the February 20 movement back in 2011 during the Arab Spring. It got some small constitutional reforms, but eventually it just got swallowed up by mainstream politics. The traditional political parties co-opted the leadership, pushed all that energy into elections, and basically neutralized the revolution with promises of slow, gradual change. Then you had the Iraq Reef movement in 2016-2017. That one was different. It was built around a charismatic leader, Nasser Zefzafi, and it was focused on demands for development in the marginalized Reef region. The movement was great at using social media and had real support from the people, but its centralized leadership was its biggest weakness. All the authorities had to do was arrest Zefzafi, sentence him to 20 years in prison, and without its leader, the entire movement just collapsed. GenZ 212 studied both of those failures, and they created something nobody had ever seen before, a truly leaderless movement. There are no charismatic figures to arrest, no central headquarters to raid, no political parties to co-opt them. They exist as a pure network. They are invisible, and you can't crush them with the old tactics. And this is where Nigerian youths really missed a crucial lesson. NSAS had clear leaders. You could identify the organizers. It had centralized funding. So when the government decided to crush it, they knew exactly who to go after. They froze bank accounts, arrested leaders, or forced them to flee the country. And the movement died right along with its leadership. But GenZ 212 learned from the mistakes of NSAS. Their Discord servers are run by rotating anonymous moderators. Their TikTok content is created by thousands of different people, not one central account. And their funding comes from peer-to-peer networks that the government can't freeze or control. African government has spent decades perfecting how to suppress protest. They know how to arrest leaders, how to infiltrate organizations, how to cut off the money, and how to turn movement against each other. But what do you do when there is no one to arrest, no organization to infiltrate, and no funding to cut? This is the innovation that has government from here in Lagos all the way to Cairo watching and getting very nervous. Because if Morocco's youth could crack the code, what's to stop their own? It's like 2025 is the year young Africans woke up. You saw it in Kenya, you saw it in Madagascar, and now Morocco is erupting. But then you look at Nigeria, over 100 million young people, and it feels like they are still asleep while their entire future is going up in flames. The pattern is impossible to miss. In Kenya, GenZ protesters forced President Ruto to back down on the Finance Bill 2024, which would have put huge taxes on basic goods. They stormed the parliament, they organized massive street protests, and they just kept the pressure on until the government gave in. The cost? Over 50 people died, but they won. In Madagascar, youth-led protests over shortages of water and electricity forced President Rajolina to dissolve his entire government. 22 people died, but within days, the president went on TV apologizing and promising to fix the system. The GenZ Madagascar movement, organized completely on Facebook, had toppled a government. Even in Nepal, their GenZ movement brought down the governing coalition and forced the prime minister to resign. They used the same digital playbook we are seeing everywhere in the global south: social media coordination, viral content, and a decentralized structure. This is a generational awakening, and it's happening across continents. From Kenya to Morocco, Madagascar to Nepal, young people are refusing to accept bad governance, corruption, and leaders who waste their resources. They are demanding accountability, they are demanding transparency, and they are demanding investment in their future, not in some vanity projects for the elite. And then you have Nigeria. We are the glaring exception. Our conditions are worse than all of these countries combined. We have higher youth unemployment, worse healthcare, more extreme inequality, deeper corruption, and yet Nigerian youth choose to emigrate rather than start a revolution. They chose individual escape over collective resistance. The Jabba syndrome has become the defining feature of our generation. Instead of fighting for change, we run. Instead of demanding better government, we look for opportunities overseas. Instead of holding our leaders accountable, we plan our exit strategies. So why the difference? It comes down to political consciousness. The youth in Morocco, Kenya, and Madagascar see themselves as citizens who have rights. Too many Nigerian youths see themselves as subjects who are just hoping to escape. They understand that their countries belong to them. We still act like Nigeria belongs to the politicians. The strategy is that Nigerian youths have all the tools these other movements used. We have better digital infrastructure, higher literacy rates, stronger civil society networks. What we are missing is the courage to actually use them, and the belief that change is even possible. But this uprising in Morocco isn't over. As we speak, the battle for the political future of Africa is being fought on the streets of Rabat and Casablanca. And whoever wins will decide whether corruption or accountability is what defines the next decade. What's happening in Morocco right now is not just about Morocco. The future of every government, they are using social media monitoring to try and track down the organizers. They are trying to play both sides, look responsive, but stay in control. This two-phase strategy is something they learned from past protests. Morocco got through the February 20 movement by giving some constitutional concessions, but they crushed the Harry Reef movement with brute force. The problem for them is that GenZ 212's decentralized structure makes the old tricks impossible. You can't negotiate with a ghost, and you can't arrest a network. The implications for the whole region are huge. If Morocco's youth actually succeed in forcing real, genuine reforms, it creates a blueprint that could spread across North Africa and beyond. Every government that has a massive youth population, a generational pressure could force a compromise that just protects the elite while making it look like there is a reform. The next few weeks are going to decide whether GenZ 212 is a new chapter for African political development or just another failed uprising that teaches government how to be better at crushing dissent. Morocco's GenZ declared war on corruption, and they fought it with Discord servers and TikTok videos. They proved that African youth don't have to accept crumbling hospitals and billion-dollar vanity projects. The only question left is, when will the rest of Africa's young people realize they have the same power and the same right to demand better? The revolution is being live-streamed. The question is, are you watching or are you joining? Now, if you have watched to this point, this is Frontline Africa, where we talk about geopolitics from Africa's own point of view, where we bring you the stories with the very details mainstream media does everything to avoid. Now, I'm talking to youth across Africa, and Nigeria in particular. It's time to say enough is enough. We are not getting what we deserve as citizens of one of the youngest continents in the world. So, Nigerian youth, what is stopping us? This tax bill that will soon go into effect in 2026 has gone through all the legislative procedures, and it has gotten the executive assent, meaning that it is now law, it is now legal. Were we sleeping when this whole thing happened? What were we doing when they came up with a plan, executed it, and signed it into law? And we as chiefs are just waiting for 2026 to come, and they start taxing our very existence while giving us back nothing in return. So this is a turning point for the whole of Africa, and Nigeria has to wake up. Now, if you want to see more of my videos, maybe consider to subscribe and turn on those notifications. I am your host, GenZ Erupts, and I will see you in the next one. It's a bye-bye for now.